Hello, this is Joseph at Lightspeed. So this is a common customization that we'll add on to different reports, hiding zeros. If we're building a sales report on an inventory data set, sometimes there will be items that do not have any quantity in stock and do not have any quantity sold, and we may not be interested in including those items on our report. There's a bit of a trick that we can use to do this, leveraging some of Looker's tools in our analytics reports, and I'm going to show you how you can do that. The main reason for doing this is for filtering out items that do not really require any action. Now, we cannot do this with a straight filter, because if we remove products that did not sell, then we might be including the quantities that we want to include. And if we filter out items that are not in stock, then we may be filtering out products that sold that we should be including. So this is why we need a custom workflow. It's also worthwhile noting it's really best if you have a full row count in your data, because even with this custom workflow, we're not going to be able to see more than the first 5,000 rows of raw data. So to do this, we'll use an inventory report. So of course, a good report to start with for that is Dusty Inventory. I'm going to click on where it says View Report. And this is going to show us the products that are considered dusty. But let's change this up a bit. I'm going to remove the total cost. We're going to keep the quantity on hand. I'm going to remove the days since sold. Let's also remove the days since received. And let's remove the dusty filters. We'll remove quantity on hand is greater than 0. We'll remove item metrics is dusty. Now let's say we're just looking at the products in the top level category, let's say of bikes. Let's go down to our sales data now. We'll add the sale line total of quantity that's sold. And let's also add a filter for the completed date to products, let's say that sold in the past 6 months. Finally, let's push up our row limit here to say 5,000. And let's run the report. Okay, great. So now we see for all the bikes, the quantity on hand and the quantity that sold. Now, this is sorted by the quantity on hand. So all of these products with the quantity on hand greater than 0 should be on this report. If we scroll down though, eventually we'll come to a collection of these products where the quantity on hand is 0. Now some of these products still sold, so we might still want to include them on our report. But we see many of these items both are not in stock and did not sell. So we're going to start building our report using a custom field, table calculation. So let's take a minute to think about the logic that governs whether or not a product should be on this report. The first piece of logic is if a product's quantity on hand is not 0. So let's create that as a function. We'll say quantity on hand, and we see it here. I'm going to click on it. Now to create not equal to, we want this function, exclamation point and the equal sign, and 0. Let's label this. We'll say quantity is not equal to 0. Let's save this. What this is going to do is give us a green calculation number that returns a simple yes or no. Where the quantity on hand is 0, it returns no. This is because the quantity on hand is equal to 0. If we scroll up, we'll eventually come to the positive quantities on hand, where it returns the word yes. So far, this calculation is functioning. Now what I'm going to do is embed that function within an if statement. Let's click on Edit, and we'll say if the quantity on hand is not equal to 0, comma, the results of positive will be yes. The next results if negative will be no. Again, if we save this, it should give us identical results. The quantity on hand in this column is not equal to 0, so it returns yes. As we scroll down, the quantity on hand here is equal to 0, so it returns a no. But now we want this calculation to look additionally at the quantity sold. So let's go back to our calculation. We'll edit. And let's add one more rule in here. Here we see if the quantity on hand is not equal to 0, return a yes. So I'm going to copy this and let's paste it. But now, instead of looking at the quantity on hand, let's look at the quantity sold. I'm going to start typing quantity. We'll see quantity sold here, and it comes up. So now we have two rules. If the quantity on hand is not equal to 0, it will return a yes. If the quantity sold is not equal to 0, it will return a yes. But if neither of those conditions are met, which means if both the quantity on hand and quantity sold are equal to 0, it will return a no. Finally, let's add one more closing bracket, as we need one for each argument. Let's also give this a name. Let's call it include. I'm going to save. So now our calculation is going to return a yes if it finds either quantity in stock or quantity sold. This item, for example, has 0 quantity on hand, but 1 sold, and so it's returning a yes. This item has no quantity on hand and no quantity sold, so it's returning a no. If we scroll up, we'll probably see products that do have quantity on hand, but also didn't sell, but they're still considered a yes anyways. So it looks like our calculation is working. So this is the fun part. Now we're going to open up our visualization. So the visualization is the final version of the report, both that you'll be able to download and that you'll receive in your scheduled emails. What we want to do now is go to our include yes-no calculation. I'm going to click on the gear icon, and we're going to hide no's from visualization. I'm going to click on that. Now, two things will happen. First of all, instances where the products were both not in stock and not selling are going to be removed from our report. Also, the calculation itself is not going to be visible on the report. It's just performing an action that is used for the final version. So if we scroll down this report now, we'll see quantity on hand is greater than 0, and we'll see quantity sold. If we scroll down further, we'll come to the section of the report where the quantity on hand is 0, but still the only items that are being returned here are those that have a quantity sold. If we scroll all the way down, we'll see that none of the products return both a 0 for the quantity on hand and the quantity that sold. So our function is working. Now there are many different ways you can continue to use this function, both with this type of report, but of course in many other types of reports too. For example, we could consider whether or not the product is currently on order. We could also use different thresholds besides not equal to 0. So thank you for watching our video. You can find more resources here in the Video Help Center and also in the Analytics section on Community.